The other element of this is that often the complexity of that group of individuals who are fighting on behalf of justice and truth often makes it more difficult for them to gain the kind of credibility and the kind of publicity that they would require to make their views more known. And what I mean by that is, for example, someone like you, for example, who marched with the civil rights movement here in America. You have expressed such powerful support for the rights of blacks in America and human rights as a whole. But the fact that you are pro-Israel, that you are critical of the Islamic extremism and so on, prevents many from seeing the complexity of your views. You truly are in many ways a liberal, in a sense. I mean, you are liberal in your outlook. You're generous in your way of looking at the oppressed and so on.
But the liberals are
you're pro-Israel, so all of a sudden that makes you suspect.
Well, because the liberals
lends you to oversimplification.
That's right, because the liberals stopped being liberals. The liberals became radicals. I mean, how can you be a liberal and be quiet about slavery or about how women are treated or about, look, where is the protests about what's happening to Christians in the Middle East? It's unbelievable. Do you know that the Christian population in Syria is at the verge of being, they're terrified. They will be wiped out if this bad Assad guy, who's their protector, loses. Where's the Christian world? Where's the human rights community about that? They haven't opened their mouth a bit. Where are they on all of these issues where non-Westerners, and particularly Arabs and Muslims, are the perpetrators? They're flummoxed. They're quiet.
It's a very complex world, and the question would be it's a dilemma right now. Let's take Syria again, where this bloodthirsty, very oppressive dictator has been in power for how many years, decades, and you have a people who are being exploited, oppressed. There's an opportunity for them to free themselves from that. Of course, that oppression allows a certain segment that we are positive toward to be freed potentially as well. Of course, they'll probably be persecuted later on once these Muslim extremists take over. But for the moment, it seems like really hard to not go and support and to try to change that status quo. So, it's the complexity these days of where groups are being held hostage and other groups are being protected. And somehow if you help one, then you do damage to the other. And it's a very complex world. And often
we have in our mind Western history. We don't know anything about the Islamic world and the Arab world. So when we think about people in the streets, we think French Revolution. We think all those poor French people who were screaming for bread, and against Marie Antoinette. Must be just like that. Well, it's not like that. Because of course there are people who want freedom there. But underneath it is a radical Islamic mechanism and machine that is the only strong power apart from the dictators. And we all wanted those, social media guys, the Twitters and the Facebook crowd in Egypt. We thought that was going to be the power, but they got swallowed up in a second. They were the first to be defeated by the Muslim Brotherhood.
Yeah, but radicalism is increasing in the world, not just on the side of Muslim extremism, but I think here in America, and what you mentioned before about the fact that you see your own destiny as a Jew implicated in the struggles for other minorities, such as the Christian minorities. But I think this is one of the reasons why many Christians are concerned, conservative Christians, orthodox Christians here in America are concerned as well, is the fact that we, in a sense, are becoming also an oppressed minority. There is an entire radical machinery that really has some very clear, specific tenets established for their own orthodoxy. And that slowly this grip of that very liberal, extremist, radical liberalism is tightening around us more and more. So that even in our churches, sometimes my fear is that in a few years, I won't be able to say certain things that are compatible with my own orthodox beliefs because I may be accused of racial hatred, of inciting persecution of gays, and so on and so forth. So, in fighting for many of these issues, I'm really ultimately, fighting for my own right to be a Bible-believing, conservative, Orthodox Christian in America. But you see more and more liberalism also coalescing into a very radical, knee-jerk kind of robot intolerance.
Yeah. You have the problem of, we can talk about the issue of this Obamacare with the contraceptives and the forcing of the Catholic Church to provide services that it feels are immoral. And now I know that in the Jewish community, which is mostly liberal, many of my Jewish friends, we want contraceptives, we want, right to have abortion, et cetera, et cetera. We're not going to support the Catholic Church. Well, what's going to happen when one day the state says, circumcision that you Jews practice, this may not be human right. Maybe human rights will be against, or maybe the way that the kosher slaughtering, this is already an issue in Europe where they don't like the way that rabbis slaughter animals. So religious freedom is something that is indivisible. If you don't have it, I don't have it. And so it's something, again, that I think that there should be cooperation about. The state should not come in its elitist view telling us how we ought to lead our lives down to the minutia.